happy to be here. I hope you can hear me. I guess that's better. After I came here, I realized I'd been in this hall a couple of times before, and it's a wonderful hall. So I'm also happy to be back in this campus, in this hall. It's very apt for your gathering. Let me start by acknowledging the District Director, Mohan Krishnan, the Conference Chair, Abdul Hadi, the two, both the winner and the finalist of the world's best speaker, Luisa Montalvo and Fusi Gotuako, and all of you from the clubs, the areas, the divisions, and the district, 700 or so of you who have gathered here today. I know this is going to be a fun time, and I'm glad you asked me to be a part of it. When I agreed to do this, I didn't know two things. One, I didn't know I was going to be shuttling back and forth to Madurai 3 times this week. So I've basically just come back to do this afternoon. That's not unusual, but it's okay. Thank you. The second is that, I get booked to a lot of different events, and I didn't realize I was going to be speaking in front of 700 expert public speakers with no topic at all. Because normally my team will give me some kind of theme. And then I came back and they said, no, the district director was very clear. He didn't want you to speak about anything in particular, just leadership and your journey. So I had to sit here and start writing myself some notes. That's why I need the podium. But I was also told about the time, and they said you'll get a green card at some point, a yellow card at some point. Right. And I asked the question, what happens if I finish before the green card? But in any event, now that I've come here and you've given me this wonderful opportunity, I want to say a few things, talk a little bit about my journey, and maybe say why I agree with the district director that this is such an important institution, a 100-year-old institution, and why it's such an important talent or training or a skill that we should try to make as universal as possible. I must start by saying that I went to boarding school at a very young age, about 5 years or so. It wasn't easy. I don't recall being a particularly good student except in grades. I got good grades, but I don't recall being otherwise worth emulating in any way. I don't recall being part of any special effort or any debating club or anything like that. Certainly, I don't think I've just come back from being the chief guest, and only I think the second time in 167 years in my boarding school's history, a chief guest who's an alumnus who's not a armed services officer. And I can guarantee, as I said on that occasion, if you had asked my 80-odd classmates, pick the guy in this batch who's going to come back as chief guest, I would have been 80 out of 80. So, life takes us through different paths and different kind of trajectories that we can't predict. But I must start by saying I was not particularly either interested or particularly good at anything other than getting the grades I needed to get. I had a lot of other fun activities. I was in trouble all the time. But otherwise, I was not exemplary in any way. Around the time I went to the US at the age of 21, just turned 21, my father insisted I should go overseas to study. And I went to the US and then ended up living there 20 years, doing various things, getting multiple degrees, working as a consultant, working as a trader on Wall Street, and then rose to be a manager in the investment bank that I worked, and then had a career that was around the world. But I would say starting as a consultant while I was still a PhD student, I started realizing that I had not just the IQ to get good grades, but decent communication skills, because though I was an Indian in otherwise relatively small town America, and I had consulting clients all over. I had corporate clients who sent me to, I think, about 35 or 38 of the 50 states for work. They had factories in all these places. I found that I was able to get along and communicate and get my point across and get things done. And that was the first time I had ever contemplated a career. My father was, before me, a public service, a lawyer, landed. My grandfather before him, my great-grandfather before him. And I think going back 500 years or so, we can trace our roots to the Prime Minister of the Nayak Kingdom in 1550 or 1570. So I came from that lineage, and I had never contemplated actually having a job or having a career. I thought I would study like my father said and come back and be like him and him, his father before him. So I realized both that I was good at something and that communication was essential to it while I was a consultant, and communicating with people of different backgrounds, of different educational kind of depth in different fields. And then, for various reasons, I ended up going back to school at the ripe age of 35 for my 4th degree in finance. And at the end of it, I decided this is the last time in my life I'll get to do something completely different. I was wrong. I'm now doing something completely different here again at the age of 50. But at the age of 35, I started as a trader on Wall Street. I think I was the oldest associate in the history of my firm. Most associates were 27, 28. And there, surprisingly, in the world of investment banking and trading, we started getting training. We started getting assessed, and we started getting training on speaking and public speaking. For the first time in my life, we had all these coaches that would come and take. I don't think everybody was put through it, but I think certain people were selected to be on a leadership track. And they'd take video of us, and then they'd give us feedback, and they'd tell us, you're not moving your hands enough, or you're talking too fast. And I think that was roughly when I started kind of really talking more kind of fearlessly, or more with just real-time thinking as opposed to prepared speeches. Most of my life, I had been doing PowerPoint presentations with a bunch of data and with a lot of depth on very technical subjects, on derivative structuring and like accounting laws, variations between different regimes in different parts of the world and so forth. So for me, it was a big transition. And I still remember distinctly the day I turned 40 years old. I had achieved certain goals in my life, and I remember going and telling my wife, at the age of 40, after so many degrees, so many different careers, and so many different places, I realized I missed my calling. I think I should have been a lawyer like my father before me and his father before him. I'm actually fit to be good at arguing and making kind of good logic. And my wife, who's very down to earth, I met her at university when I was doing my PhD. She was doing a master's, but also part Irish, part Welsh, part French, part Austrian, big mix of European backgrounds, very fine sense of humor. Without missing a heartbeat, she said, I don't know about anything else, but you're not going back to school for a 5th degree. So that was the end of my, my discussion about the law. But over time, I ended up in public life eventually at the age of 50. 10 years later, and shift through very difficult circumstances, through the bankruptcy of my old firm, dealing with the consequences of that as a director of a few companies and hundreds of people working under me. And then going and learning a whole different kind of banking, commercial banking universally, in like 60 or 70 markets and things I had never contemplated. I used to be a pure play kind of investment banker, London, New York, maybe Hong Kong, maybe Frankfurt, maybe a bit Tokyo. That was the end of, the true kind of derivative and financial engineering part of the world. And here I was going to Ghana and Vietnam and Mauritius and all these other places. It was a wonderful education for me. And eventually, with that knowledge of the emerging markets, which I didn't have because I went very young to the US and I didn't really have any exposure to anything other than advanced markets, I eventually ended up in public life. Just when I thought I had mastered the art of good communication, I discovered that I had to do all my political speaking in Tamil, which I simply could not do. I could only speak Tamil at my house. I couldn't speak on a platform. So I tell you the honest truth. I campaigned for 30 days in the election for MLA 2016 and didn't give one speech. In 30 days of campaigning, I didn't speak publicly once. All I did was go around, smile at people, shake hands, and come back. So after 30 days, I get elected. By God's grace, the good deeds of my forefathers, the brand name was there because I just moved back. And I go to the assembly, and all of a sudden we start having a discussion about who should lead the debate on the budget. And suddenly my now chief minister, then leader of the opposition, says, why don't we ask Thiago to do it? So the first major assembly session after we are elected to the 2016 assembly, which was a lot different than 2011 assembly because my party only had like 10% of the seats in 2011. Here we had like 40% of the seats. So we had like a lot of gusto. We were going to do something. And I discovered I couldn't speak in Tamil. So we went and looked up the rule book, and it said, because it was written back in the days of the Madras presidency, it says members shall speak in English or Tamil or Kannada or Telugu or Malayalam, because Madras presidency went all the way to Orissa. So it was covered by the rules. So my chief minister said, fine, you speak in English, but try and put in as much Tamil as possible. And then you find, I think, two things. One, that for many of us, when we say mother tongue, it is in our blood. So basically, it comes out when it needs to come out. So it wasn't that I couldn't speak, I was just nervous. Because though my prepared speech was all in English, every rebuttal of mine was completely in Tamil. And since all of these are on the record and we just digitize them, so I encourage you to go and search the assembly website for all these records called tnla.gov.in or something like that. I'll send you the link if you want. Please pull up my speech from July 25th, 2016. And I can honestly say that as prepared as I went and as unique a speech as it was for any member in terms of its technical content, former banker, guy who learned economics from many Nobel laureates, what I'm proudest about was the rebuttals I gave in Tamil, 100% Tamil, and I gave rebuttals to all the questions that were interspersed with me. So at some point I realized that actually at the heart of communication is two things. One, a common language and a common understanding of some value system, of some shared culture, history, expectation, common feature. And I've since become such a convert that everywhere I go, I say, at the heart of all human relationships is telling stories and listening to stories. And listening is as great a skill as telling. And I think in that sense, such institutions are tremendous because what they do is help realize the potential of people who have a lot. Everybody has a lot inside. Not everybody is able to get it all out and get it out in the right way at the right time to the right audience. I want to probably, before the green card comes, I don't know how much time I have. I'm not seeing the time. But I want to talk about maybe just one example of something that you can relate to. And then if I have time before the cards, I'll add some other content. About 2-3 years ago, I was invited to debate at the mother of all debating societies, which is the Oxford Union. And I was a bit shocked. I said, I think I'm a decent communicator. I think I'm, well qualified, but I'm not sure I can, just talk for the sake of talking. I don't want to name any names, but there's another Indian politician who's very good who's not got the depth intellectually, but basically can talk really well. So I said, I don't think I'm in that league. And they said, no, you have to come, you have to come, you have to come. And the motion before the House was, this House believes that the Raj still lives. That is, that the British Raj still lives. And so first they asked me, will you speak for the motion? I said, sure, no problem. And then a month went by, and these are planned like 3 months, 6 months in advance. And a month went by, and 2 months went by, and at some point, I got a call saying, what is that, 5 minutes? 3 minutes, what is it, 5 minutes? 5 minutes, okay. I got a call saying, there are not enough people to speak against. So would you mind switching and speak against? And I said, sure. I mean, it's a good debate. There are no black and white answers in life. If you ask me to speak for, I'll speak for. If you ask me to speak against, I'll speak against. Sure, I'll switch. So if you switch, because there's not enough speakers, you can be the closing argument. You can be number 8 of 8 people, 4 on each side, 2 students, 2 outside speakers. You can be number 8. And I said, fine, I'll switch and I'll speak the other side. And sure enough, I went and I spoke. Now, I want to tell you 3 aspects of that. It won't take me 5 minutes, I hope. First, of the people who spoke against, one of them was a very distinguished professor, I think Vice Chancellor of one of the bigger universities, private universities here. And while he was a very good orator, he did what I think was cardinal sin. He cast aspersions on the content, certainly, and possibly the caliber of one of the students on my side of the debate. Now, these are things you should never do, right? When you're already like 60, 70 years old, you're a distinguished professor, you're vice chancellor, something, surely you don't need to descend in the quality of debate to casting personal things. And I say it again and again on TV. I said, those who don't have any other argument to make will start making it personal. When you're talking policy, you're talking principles, you stick to that. Don't get down to this. The flip side of it is, the guy who spoke before me, who closed the argument for the Raj still lives, was a good friend now, then first known to me, a gentleman called Hamid Mir, who is a famous journalist from Pakistan, who had interviewed, he had got the first interview of Osama bin Laden after September 11th, 2001, which is a bit surreal for me, because I was at the Twin Towers when the planes hit in September 11, 2001. A different story for a different day. So it was a bit surreal to connect the dots back with him. But his argument was so powerful because he said, listen, I have been jailed under sedition laws myself and spent months under imprisonment. How can you argue against that? Everything I say is theory. This gentleman has suffered at the wrong end of the stick, right? Anyway, as I would expect, he won the debate, or their side won the debate. The House carried the motion. The Raj still lives, and I thought it was fair. But I want to say also that these things are done in multiple stages. Since then, if you go and look this up on the YouTube, I think my speech has got about 7.5 lakh views, which is like double the next person's, right? So, and all this is all impromptu. I didn't prepare anything. I didn't make any notes. So, debating and speaking well, sometimes you win the House, sometimes you win the long term, especially in this age of YouTube, which is ubiquitous and is by far the most powerful social media in the world. Everything is permanent. Be thoughtful what you speak, because it never gets erased, but be good at what you do. And thank you all again for inviting me and for pursuing this great art of public speaking. Thank you very much.